Again and again and again, our guests have shared with us research and contemplations about how we are at a vital evolutionary crossroad. We have outgrown the old ways of creating, reached the end of materialism, and learning new ways to create that are rooted in less tangible ideas and metrics. We're discovering that vibrations really do create, and that the new metric of value in the future won't be how much money or things you have, but rather how much well-being you've cultivated and how much you have to share. Our guest today, Gregg Braden, has been sharing information about the science of global cycles and transformation for more than 25 years. Gregg Braden is a 5-time New York Times bestselling author, researcher, educator, lecturer, and internationally renowned as a pioneer bridging science, spirituality, and human potential. He merges modern science and the wisdom of our past to reveal real-world solutions to the issues that challenge our lives. His research has led to 15 film credits and 12 award-winning books now published in over 40 languages. This episode of Quantum Revolution is a little longer than our usual episodes, but I know that you'll want to take the time and really hear Gregg's answers about what's up on the planet Earth right now and what is your role in helping evolve the world.
You're listening to Quantum Revolution with Karen Parker, exploring new frontiers in consciousness, science, and evolution. Join us in intimate conversations with cutting-edge scientists, spiritual leaders, artists, disruptors, and visionaries who are working towards reframing the narrative of our future by healing the rift between spirituality and science, reclaiming creativity, and laying the foundation for a new world. And now, here's your host, Karen Parker.
Hello, I'm Karen Parker. Welcome to Quantum Revolution. It is an honor today to have as my guest Gregg Braden. He is, as you know, the author of many best-selling books. I think probably in my world, one of the greatest thought leaders who has an enormous capacity to bridge the seeming illusion between science and spirituality. And we're going to be talking today about the future of the world and what exactly is going on the planet today. So welcome, Gregg. It's exciting to have you here.
Oh, Karen, I am so excited to be with you. This is our first time together. I'm not sure why, and I'm happy to be with you today. I'm coming to you from a studio just outside of Santa Fe, New Mexico. I don't know where you are. Where are you broadcasting from today?
I'm broadcasting from my parents' office in Houston.
We're in the same geographic boundaries then, just right down the road from Santa Fe.
Right. Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah, and you just opened the door to a big topic. Where's the world going? Where would you like to begin with that topic?
So I'm actually going to begin with amusing. So one of the things that my listeners know is that I'm pretty obsessed with language, because to me, language gives us a template that starts to construct what we end up building in the world. I was thinking the other day about the word apocalypse. It got me searching, what's the opposite of an apocalypse? And as it turns out, there isn't actually a word for the opposite of an apocalypse. If you look at the Urban Dictionary, apocalypse is kind of a new word. We all kind of have a sense of what that means. And I think that a lot of movies, film, entertainment, conversations, people, my own children, I have children in their 20s and 30s. I think a lot of people really feel that we are potentially skirting on the edge of an apocalypse in the way that it's portrayed in science fiction. And I am curious, based on all the work that you've done on how to consciously steer things in different directions, the patterns and the work around patterns that you've looked at, all the work that you've done, what do you know is going on the planet right now?
Wow. There are so many different ways to dive into this question. I'll just begin. I'm a scientist, an earth scientist. I'm a geologist by degree with a very strong background in the life sciences, marine biology, marine geology, marine chemistry, math, physics, computer science. The computer science has really become important over these last few years. I say this because it's a multidisciplinary background that has given me the ability to stay current with the new discoveries from the scientific community. And those discoveries are coming fast and furious. For example, the peer-reviewed journal Science is released every 30 days. And there's so many new discoveries that are happening so quickly, they now release a weekly addendum to keep the scientific community current on the new discoveries. And then they also summarize many of those in the monthly journal. We've asked science to tell us who we are. We've asked science to tell us where we've come from. We've asked science to tell us about the origin of the universe, the origin of our planet, and the origin of our species. Where do we come from? Science is doing a really good job of answering these questions. The problem is there is a reluctance in academia to accept what science is telling us. There is a reluctance in mainstream media to report on what science is telling us. The reality, Karen, is that there's a battle unfolding on many levels. We all know there's a battle for our thoughts. That's no secret. There's a battle for our beliefs, what we believe about ourselves and our relationship to the world. That's no secret. There's a deeper battle that is less recognized by many people, even in our genre, and it is a battle for our very humanness and what it means. What is our potential in this world, and what role do we play in the unfolding of the events that we're all seeing in our lives? So as a scientist, and I'm a systems scientist as well, so I tend to look at the big picture to understand the context and then to zero in on the nanosecond of our lives right now to see where that fits into the big picture. There is a convergence, a rare convergence of natural rhythms and cycles that would be occurring whether we were on this planet in the present form or not. We know about some of those rhythms. Climate, for example, is a rhythmic cycle that we're going through right now. And when you look in geologic history, through the ice cores in Antarctica, you can see the ebb and the flow of carbon dioxide, the ebb and flow of temperatures. Humans have only been here for 200,000 years. You can see well beyond into the millions of years, those natural rhythms already existed. We're not causing it. We are contributing to some degree. And we need to accept that and acknowledge that and be responsible for that. But climate in and of itself, that would be enough to turn the world upside down, just the implications of the climate. We're also living the convergence of a series of economic cycles. I'm going to make a distinction between economies and finances. Economic cycles are the way that populations share the vital resources of life: food, energy, water, medicine, communications, defense, things like that. We are living a convergence, the end of one cycle and the beginning of the next, of an economic cycle. I had the opportunity a few years ago with my dear friend, my colleague, Dr. Bruce Lipton, who wrote the book, The Biology of Belief, and is one of the grandfathers of epigenetics. He was performing epigenetic experiments in the 1960s before there was even a name for it. We were invited to speak to the United Nations, and they asked a question very similar to what you've just asked. What's happening? What can we expect? And what can we do to prepare over the next few years? So what I'm saying to you, I shared at the UN. The third component surprised the people at the UN, and that is the cycle of human conflict. We are living a very pivotal point in natural rhythms of human conflict. And they said, well, what do you mean rhythms? Doesn't conflict just happen spontaneously when it happens? It certainly may. But what the science very clearly shows us is that the way we respond to crises is largely driven by magnetic fields of the planet, of Earth, magnetic fields of the sun. And the relationship is very simple. When the magnetic fields are high, we are more cooperative, more willing to solve problems together, less aggressive. When the magnetic fields are low, just the opposite of that is occurring. It may be no surprise to your audience and my global family and our community, we're living the lowest point in the magnetic fields in this cycle. It doesn't mean we must have conflict. It means that we are vulnerable and susceptible to conflict. However, when you look at the rhythms and the cycles, they're very clear rhythms and cycles. The great wars of the past have always happened, and they've always ended at the tops and the bottoms of these cycles. Here's the good news. We are also living the greatest opportunity for peace right now, because when we recognize where we are in the cycles, it is an opportunity to consciously extend the olive branch of peace and to communicate clearly and to become really good listeners. And I'm saying this because it's not only between nations, This is between people. This happens at the family dinner table between parents and children. It's even happening with us on an individual level as we struggle with our own inner crises, our own inner extremes that we're all going through. We're all feeling pulled in different directions. Those three factors alone are creating an environment where we must go through change. And the way to go through change in nature's way is that the patterns, the systems must give way to a higher order. And when they give way, we call that chaos. And what we're witnessing right now, it takes a generation for this to happen. It doesn't happen like nice and neatly. It'd be nice if we all end one generation and then wake up in a new generation with the changes, but it doesn't work that way. It takes one generation. And if you can just imagine how strong the soul strength, the soul compass of a generation to be able to navigate one world that is collapsing because it's unsustainable and a new world that's emerging, but it's not here yet. And we're living in both those worlds, and we're trying to be healthy and happy and have some semblance of an intimate, healthy relationship and success and abundance and joy in our lives without getting lost in the fear of the unknown. That's where we are right now. So we said this to the United Nations. We'll probably never be invited back because this isn't what they wanted to hear. Of course, within that context is the battle that we're talking about. There are those power structures that have chosen to capitalize upon this environment of extremes and chaos to try to implement their own vision of what the world should look like and what our lives should look like. And the problem is there are multiple competing visions with multiple competing agendas. We are witnessing this play out real time on our televisions and our radios. I don't watch TV anymore. Most people don't, I don't think. Certainly on our radios, this isn't something that's going to happen like years down the road. We're in it right now, Karen. We're in it. And the only way through it or out of it is to go through it. And the question is, do we come through it with a soft landing, or do we come through it with a degree of suffering and hurt that I believe is unnecessary, a harder landing? So I think as we can, number one, just become aware. This is not business as usual. We're living a time of extremes. It's not going to last forever. It's a brief, intense period of time. We have this little window of opportunity where we get to recognize what works and what doesn't. And what doesn't work, rather than clinging to those ideas and fighting to keep those current in a world that changed, we can bless those ideas and let them go and make room for the beautiful new world that is emerging. And there's a lot of good news and a lot of beautiful things that are happening, both in the scientific community, both within what we know about the human body and what we know about the world around us. It's not being supported. Science has been hijacked. And the data is being cherry picked. It's been hijacked by religion, by corporations, by politics, by academia. And we're seeing this play out as well. So I want to thank you. It's through communities. You are a hub for your community. And it's through communities like this that we can responsibly and truthfully and honestly and accurately share the ideas. I'm just going to say this because I could go on and on this. I think it's really important to share these ideas with kindness. When we discover something new, it's not about making somebody else wrong or making them bad people. It's about sharing what it is that we do know, we do understand, and how we can embrace and implement it in our lives in a healthy way. Because there's so much hurt that's unresolved in the world, and that unresolved hurt becomes fear, and that fear is expressed as hate. So we see the hate. What we know is that we're actually seeing people that are deeply wounded, and it's our global family. So as we can share these ideas kindly and responsibly, I think we begin to build the foundation for that new world. So you asked me a short question, what's going on in the world? That was a long answer to an overview, and now we can tie into that.
I totally figured you'd fill that time. I really respect your insights and your brilliance, and I love the synthesis you just gave us. Over the past few years, we've had many thought leaders, many people who've spoken to the UN who have said very similar things, that we have come to the end of a growth cycle in a system, and that this chaos is actually a sign that things are shifting. And I personally believe that it's a sign that we're shifting towards a greater potential to the fulfillment of the human story. And I think the human story has the potential to have a really beautiful ending. I want to pull out a couple of things that you said. I like to ground our conversations here on Quantum Revolution in practical ways. I would say that the bulk of our listeners were probably born sensing that this is a time of great shift. I would say a bulk of our listeners have felt a certain responsibility to midwifing this shift. I would say that hands down, the bulk of our listeners, if not all of them, are people who have wide open hearts and who are deep empaths and have a huge inner sense of knowing. And I think they struggle. And I think they struggle primarily because of what you said, that they are really between two worlds. They still have to go to the grocery store to get their groceries and have an income and do regular materialistic life, right? And they also have this knowingness that there's more available, there's more possible, there's something else brewing. My first question for you, really beyond are we headed towards an apocalypse, is what do you say to people who know that their job is to walk into the room and be the person who's regulating the room, who's regulating and influencing the energy of the room, but yet they're overwhelmed by their internal sensitive connection to the pulse of this shift that feels so hard? What do you recommend to people where they find that middle ground where they stay connected and they don't lose connection to their own power and truth?
It's a really good question, Karen. You mentioned the grocery store. I live in a rural community in northern New Mexico, and I'm out of the state and out of the country more than I am here. And I do my own shopping for my trips. So when I go to my little local co-op to prepare for an upcoming trip, this is where I get to connect with my community. And a lot of them do not know everything that we're talking about. But what they do know is this. I'll talk to them in the aisles in the produce section, and haven't seen each other for a while. What's going on? And what they'll say is something is not right. Things are moving too fast. We are being pressured to make decisions too quickly without having the information of what those decisions are all about. This is agricultural, it's health, it's finance, it's everything. So what they're saying is, we don't know what's going on, but we need to go back to the basics. And what they're doing is they're pulling their kids out of public schools. Homeschooling, they are learning to be more self-sufficient, not to the point of excluding everything else, but just taking care of themselves on a little bit deeper level, growing some of their own food and making preparations in the event of a breakdown of things like electricity and lights and heat and, things like that. We're living a time of extremes. It makes sense to expect the unexpected. Maybe it didn't, years ago. I connect with my people in that way, and this is what they're seeing. The bottom line for me, I think, is for us to realize that we are absolutely not what we have been told, and we are so much more than we've ever even allowed ourselves to believe and accept. I think most people sense there's more to us, but even when they sense that, they'll reel it in a little bit because they'll say, I don't want my ego to come into play or something. And I'm just going to say, as a scientist, from a scientific perspective, we are a highly advanced, technologically sophisticated, soft technology. So we're not a technology of computer chips and sensors and wires. We're more than that. We're neurons and cell membranes and ion potentials that move across cell walls. And the beauty is that we self-regulate. We are the only form of life that we know of today that has the ability to sit down a moment in time and consciously choose at will, on demand, to self-regulate our own biology. And what that means is that we can awaken a strong immune system on demand, that we can awaken longevity enzymes that we all have on demand, that we can become resilient to change on demand, that we can awaken deep states of intuition, deep states of cognition, of super learning, super reading, super memory, and so much more. And the science supports all of this. So there is a battle. And I mentioned this, there's a battle playing out, and this is what our community is feeling, because we're being told, and through 2 generations now in academia and through our mainstream media, that we are powerless victims of a world that we have no control over, and that we are flawed. Our young children are being taught that carbon-based life is flawed, that our ability to empath and to emote and feel the feelings actually impairs our logic and our thinking and our decision making. So if we are victims, we need a savior. And the savior that's being touted in our world today, especially our young people, is technology. So we're being told that we need technology. We need to replace our bodies. We need to replace cells in our bodies and systems in our bodies with computer chips and chemicals in the blood and wires under the skin and sensors. This is what we're being told. So this ultimately is the battle for our humanness that we're talking about. So the answer to how you win that battle and the answer to your question of what we do is the same. And it's a beautiful and simple answer. By becoming the best version of ourselves, we have won that battle. When we accept the deep truth of what it means to be human and the full capacity, and we're still exploring, we don't even know what it means to be human on the levels that we're talking about. What we will find, Karen, is that we feel less of an urgency to incorporate that technology into our bodies and less of a desire to go there because literally, and I'm going to say this, we are the technology, all of the external technology. I'm a high-tech guy from the 1970s, working in the energy systems in the 80s, Cold War years, Star Wars defense. That was my project. And I was in the defense industry, SDI. 1990s communications industry. Amazing technology. And I love technology. And there's nothing wrong with applying it in a way that helps our lives to be better. But when we begin replacing our own biology with the technology, this is where it's a very slippery slope. We have never developed a technology in the world out there that doesn't mimic what we already do in the cells of our bodies, except we do it better. Every technology, everything. And I talk about this in the books and the videos. So when we begin to embrace the deep truth of our own humanness, we have now transcended it. You're not even fighting the battle, you're rising above the battle to claim our own humanness. And I think this is the way we navigate this time, because if you don't know who you are, if an individual doesn't know who they are, then they will place their sense of well-being on the world around them. And when the world around us is good, there's no problem. When economy is good, stock market's good, jobs are good, health is good, nations are at peace, everything's great. But if your sense of well-being hinges on the vulnerability of what's happening in the external world, and that world starts to go awry, we're living a world of chaos right now. This is where the suffering comes from. We've got to have a rock-solid anchor, a spiritual compass, and an emotional anchor that says, this is who I am, and I know who I am, and I know what my potential, and I know what my capabilities are. And once you do that, it frees you. It doesn't change what's happening in the world. It changes your relationship to what's happening in the world. And we can watch the world. We can watch an unsustainable world collapse and bring in the beautiful new technologies, new sources of energy, new kinds of finance, businesses based on cooperation and sharing rather than competition and conflict. We know how to do this. Every organ in the human body is now documented with the ability to stop the damage, to repair what's happened, and even reverse the damage. Even organs that we were told could not. Spinal cord tissue, brain tissue, heart tissue, pancreatic tissue. It's got to be given the proper environment. And that environment, the most important, it could be nutritional, it could be diet, exercise, all of that. But the most important is the inner environment, the perceptions, the emotions, the way we see ourselves. And the umbrella for all this, Karen, that we can call this, it's our story. Our story. Our story is the way that we've been taught to think of ourselves. So we live our lives based upon our story. We solve our problems. We heal our bodies. We choose our relationships. We choose our politics. We build our society, all based upon our story. And what we're witnessing, Karen, is an entire generation that's being faced with a challenge. We're being told that the story we learned is not 100% accurate. It's wrong in so many places. And that there's a new story we're being invited to embrace. And everyone learns differently. Not everyone's going to embrace that story in the same way at the same time. So the best way, what our people can do, in my experience, is you'll never convince or persuade friends and family of the kinds of things that we're talking about now, because
That's true.
everyone has their own, they're called media silos. Everyone has their own trusted source of information on Facebook or YouTube or Twitter. You go to the family dinner table and there's the parents and the kids. They've got different sources of information that they believe, and they are really entrenched in those beliefs. So you're not going to convince or persuade anyone, but what we can do is we live our lives by example. When we live in our lives what we have come to understand about our bodies and our world and our emotions, other people will recognize that. And what they'll see is that people who've embraced these truths, they're happier, they're healthier, their lives are more fulfilled. And then they'll ask, why did you solve that problem in that way? Or how come you're not afraid of the new pandemic that's coming down the road or whatever? Why aren't you afraid of that? And that's the doorway. That's the invitation to share what we now understand, knowing that everything we understand can change in a heartbeat, because science is made to be constantly updated, constantly changing. It's not static. And that's the reason why our young people, they're still being taught Darwin's theory of evolution is the source of our origin when the evidence doesn't support it. They're being taught we are the product of a dead, inert universe, when the new science is showing the universe is alive, it is conscious, and even intelligent. The James Webb Telescope is sending us data showing us intelligence in galaxies that are actually creating superjets to move them in their location to avoid damage from pulsars coming from stars or supernovas or whatever. I mean, it goes on and on. A new human story is emerging, and it's a beautiful story of hope and possibility. And when we allow ourselves to embrace that story based upon the science, the real science, not the pop science that you see on legacy media. We've got some popular scientists out there that are perpetuating really bad ideas. The real science, it gives us a reason to change our story. And within that reason, we become the best version of ourselves. And I think that's all we can do. And when we do that, we've defeated the agenda. We've defeated the ideas that are trying to convince and persuade us that we are flawed and that we need something outside of ourselves. We don't need the artificial intelligence and chips in our brains, because we are so much more than what that AI can do. It's fast, but it's not scalable. We can scale beyond any known limits right now. So again, we could go on with this. And I'm very passionate about it because it's up for all of us right now. And I want to say to you, Karen, I think this is a really important conversation, and I'm looking at a timer, and I'd like to take this as close as I can to my next interview. So I'd like to continue. I don't want you to feel the pressure to end immediately here.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I would like to just do a quick summary of everything that you've said so far, because I think it's so very important, because I do think that in our communities, I sometimes hear people wanting to find these very complex solutions. And I keep saying, and I'm hearing you confirm this for me, which I'm grateful for, is that right now in front of us is the main job to birth this new world, to replace outdated systems that are no longer functioning and are no longer rooted in what I think is a new primacy that says all life is inherently valuable. And that when we believe that all life is inherently valuable, then the new systems we build will be completely different. That we will look at our fellow siblings and say, oh, you're valuable because you exist. You don't have to prove it. You don't have to earn it. You don't have to have a degree. You don't have to know a certain person or have a certain number in your bank account. That when we can start embracing that idea, we start telling a different story. And that our responsibility right now is to begin to take back control of our own personal narrative. And I think first and foremost, starting with recognizing that we are irreplaceable, vital parts of a cosmic plan, and that each and every person on this planet has never been here before, will never be here again, is inherently valuable. And that taking control of that story, retelling that narrative, being sovereign over your own story is at least step one in birthing what's coming next. Is that a good summary?
If you had given that summary before I gave my conversation, I wouldn't have given my conversation because what you said was so right on.
Oh, well, thank you.
I'm a huge fan of Buckminster Fuller. I think he was a brilliant visionary.
Me too. Me too.
I never got to meet him, way ahead of his time. Of all the things that he gave to this world and he left for us, there's one statement that he made, and I probably say it to myself at least a couple of times a week. It comes up for me. And what he said is, you'll never build a better world by fighting the things that you don't like. If you want a better world, find a new model that makes the old model obsolete, and people will follow the new model and the old model will fall away. And I believe that, and it's so powerful. Now, we all know there are times we have to fight, but fighting means different things. It doesn't mean you have to have a battle with another person. We can resist in ways without engaging in the dense level of anger and hatred that is keeping so much of our planet stuck in this field of anger and hatred. One of the ways that we resist is a beautiful example when we take responsibility for our own bodies. And that's really, I think, where most of us are feeling the changes are so big. What can we do? Well, what we can all do is take responsibility for our own bodies. And we begin to understand that the human body is literally a highly advanced, technologically sophisticated, soft technology. And I could go into, I'm going to go off script just a little bit here, and I'm going to introduce an idea that really anchors how sacred we are. This is unscripted, obviously, and unrehearsed. We had no idea what we were going to talk about. And in my bio, one of the statements in the bio is that one of my books and one of my achievements is the discovery of intelligent information encoded into the human genome. As a senior computer systems designer during the Cold War years, part of my responsibility was pattern recognition software. And when we began to look at the human genome, when it was first published back in the early 90s, it was obvious there were some kind of patterns in there. And to make a long story very brief, I released a book in 2004 called The God Code. And it walks you through step by step, literally the recognition. I'm not going to say discovery because it's always been there. So the recognition of an intelligent message encoded into the DNA of all carbon-based life. I'm going to preface this. When I did this in 2004, it sounded like a pretty weird concept. Data stored in DNA. And what I want to say right now is that this is a leading edge technology. The Japanese pioneered this, and now everybody is doing this. What they found is that DNA is a better storage media than a flash drive on your computer. It's denser storage information, requires no energy to maintain it other than the life of the DNA, and it will last forever as long as that life form replicates. So they are encoding the Library of Congress is now encoded into certain forms of bacteria that will sustain radiation. If we ever had a nuclear attack, the next generation has all the information that they need by pulling it out of that bacteria, and we have it right there. So the idea of data in DNA is now accepted. It wasn't when I published in 2004. And the bottom line to what I found after it took me 10 years to find this is that we literally have the first layer of the DNA in every cell of every human body literally has a message that translates into the root or the core languages of humankind. Biblical Hebrew, Arabic, cuneiform, and Sanskrit. And the message is the same and all, and that literally says, God eternal within the body. God eternal within the body. Now, I have my own speculation, but as a scientist, I can't tell you who put that there. But what I can tell you is it's beyond a random chance that this message is there. When we talk about the human body and the sanctity and the sacredness of the human body, what I can say as a scientist is somewhere in our ancient past, there was an intervention of genetic mutations that has given us the ability for empathy and sympathy and compassion and to self-regulate our bodies in a way that was given to no other form of life. All the indigenous traditions tell us this, but that's not science. Now, science is seeing the mutations in the genome. They can't explain them. And now those mutations, when we translate that portion of the DNA, it literally says that there is an intelligence underlying our existence. We are not what we've been told. We're more than we've been led to believe. And when we embrace the truth and live what does it mean to be God eternal within the body? How do we think differently about ourselves and our fellow brothers and sisters? And how do we solve our problems differently? And I apply this to my life every day. When I have a tough phone call with a producer for an event on the other side of the planet, and we have to cancel it because of COVID, for example, something like that. How does God eternal within, not the little Gregg that has all the programs of unworthiness and my human flaws, that's my programming. But I can transcend that. How does God eternal within the body? How can I love myself and love this person to a higher solution without making somebody wrong or without making somebody hurt? That's God eternal within the body. And we begin to think of ourselves differently in that way. And it's beyond the scope, I know, of what we can really do well in a brief podcast. However, we're anchoring ideas in this podcast that give people the reason to look deeper. And the resources are there, my books, other people's books, other podcasts, other authors that you're having on this podcast are sharing the ideas that all reinforce that we're much more than we've been led to believe. And when we embrace that, that is how we navigate in a healthy way through this little window of extremes from a world that is unsustainable and is collapsing into the beautiful new world that we know is right there on there. We know this world exists in our hearts. So now what we're doing is we're using our minds to bring this world to fruition.
Okay, so part 1, get control of your story. Make sure the story you're telling is the true story of who you really are. And part 2 is now start practicing God eternal within the body and take that into the rooms that are dodgy and chaos filled and transforming, and bring that energy in as the template for what's next.
Yes. Can I give a concrete example in the few minutes that we have remaining of how?
Yes, please.
One of the most powerful discoveries in medical science and in biology in the last few years. In 1991, scientists, peer-reviewed journals revealed that they had discovered about 40,000 sensory neurites, specialized cells in the human heart. Now, they've always been there. They just didn't recognize them. They're like neurons in the brain, but they're not in the brain. They're in the heart. And this opens the door to a vast array of possibilities because these neurons in the heart, it's a neural network. We think, feel, remember independently in our heart from our brain. But here's where it gets interesting. We have the ability to harmonize these two neural networks. We can harmonize our heart and our brain in a process that's called coherence. And when we do that, we begin to think very differently. We hear criticism differently. We react less violently to criticism. We become conscious listeners, and we are harmonizing and tuning every cell, every organ, every system in the human body in coherence. Optimum coherence is a low frequency, 0.1 hertz. When we can create 0.1 hertz between the heart and the brain, we are laying the foundation for optimal health, optimal healing in our bodies. The way we do this is 3 simple steps. 1, we focus our awareness, move it from our mind into our heart center. And one way to do this is gently just touching the area of the heart. Your awareness will always go to the place where you feel the sensation. That's the first step. Second step is we slow our breathing to activate parasympathetic nervous system, the relaxation response. And you want to exhale for a period of time longer than the inhale. So for example, maybe 4 counts, 1, 2, 3, 4 on the inhale, and 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 on the release. Step 2. Step number 3 is with the focus in the heart and the slowed breath focused in the heart to feel the feeling of a positive emotional experience. Pretty much 100% the feeling of gratitude will work for everyone every time. There are others you can experiment, but gratitude. And when you feel that gratitude within the conditions that you've created with the breath and the focus, you are sending 0.1 hertz through the neural network from the heart to the brain. And that is creating a very powerful physiological state of coherence. 3 minutes will drop the cortisol stress levels in the body. It will increase the DHEA levels over 100%. And DHEA is the precursor to every hormone in the body. It opens the door. You'll have a stronger immune response, longevity enzymes. greater heart rate variability, which means greater resilience to change just from 3 minutes of heart-brain coherence. The Institute of Heart Math in Boulder Creek, California, pioneered this work. I'll invite my community, my global family, and Karen's family, if you want to check out Heart Math, www.heartmath.org. They're good people, good research. They're dear friends. I've worked with them since 91, and they're pioneering this kind of research. And this is one example. This is one example of soft technology because we self-regulate. We're not taking a pill, and we're not waiting for the world to do it for us. We choose to become the best version of ourselves. And this is one technique that opens the door to doing just that.
The other piece that gets added to that is your creativity goes up exponentially. And so when you're sitting in a situation where you think, I don't know what to do, your capacity to find resolutions to the challenges facing your life or the challenges facing humanity goes up exponentially when we create from a place of coherence.
Well, we do. And the reason for that is because it opens the door to deep states of intuition. The peer-reviewed science, Karen, this is amazing. The peer-reviewed science says that the physical human heart, I don't have the quote in front of me because I didn't know we were going to talk about this, but the quote, I'm going to paraphrase, it says that the evidence suggests that the physical human heart is coupled to a field of information that transcends the limits of time and space. It means that through our hearts, we have the potential to reach beyond the limits of physics. So this is why when you have a prayer in your living room for your son or your daughter, your loved one on a battlefield in Afghanistan, for example, or Syria, halfway around the world, your prayer doesn't have to travel to get there because on the level that prayer is being created, we are linked to this field of information, this underlying field where there is here. It's already there. It's entanglement is what it's called. It's all about entanglement. When we begin to operate from that perspective, it gives us the reason to lift ourselves out of the conventional and the traditional struggle, which is what's playing out in the mainstream media between political parties or the war that is being pushed upon the world. The world doesn't want the war, but a few power elites are pushing for war. We're seeing that. We're seeing people suffer from that. On this level, we rise above that, yet we influence the physical reality of our everyday lives. And I think this is what Buckminster Fuller was talking about. You find a new way where you don't need all of the external stuff because you are the technology. And then when you awaken that, you've heard the term knowledge is power. What you're doing here is you are empowering your community because this is knowledge that opens the door to direct experience of what it means, maybe for the first time, to be human, to be pure human, and to live that in our lives.
Beautiful, beautiful. Gregg Braden, thank you so much for giving us such a generous peek into the brilliance of your mind and the knowledge that you've been studying and gleaning over all these years. I appreciate your time and your wisdom so much.
Karen, I appreciate your trust. We've never worked together, so there's a level of trust that comes when you invite me into your community. And I want to thank you for your trust today and allowing me to share very freely. I don't know about you. I feel like that time just went by really quickly. Does it feel that way to you as well?
It did. And my hope and my intention here is that for any of you who may be listening who get scared or worried or frightened about what's going on, that you found a nugget that can give you a sense of hope and peace and maybe confirmation that we are absolutely headed in a very beautiful direction. So thank you. Thank you for being part of that message, Gregg. And thank you for being here with us. If you want to learn more about Gregg Braden's work, you can visit his website. It's Gregg Braden, and that's Gregg with 2 G's. So it's GreggBraden.com. You can, of course, get Gregg's books just about anywhere. They're easy to find, and they're dense and full of rich information. And for those of you who really want to go even deeper in everything that we talked about today, please do check out all of his work. Gregg, thank you so much for being here with us. What an honor. It was definitely well worth the wait. So I appreciate you so much.
Karen, thank you so much. And there's a man working behind the scenes that helped us out today. Mark, my brother, I want to thank you for all of your support and helping us out as well. I want to thank our community for sharing a part of your day with us. And Karen, I look forward to our next.
We are basically living systems. Systems have limits. Eventually, a system will reach the limit of its growth and effectiveness. Because you are a living, breathing system with one job, to grow, you eventually outgrow yourself. Think of your life story as being kind of like the carapace of an insect or the skin of a snake. You're inevitably going to outgrow it. When we outgrow our story, if we're not consciously exiting rooms that no longer fit us or blowing our old life up with great intention, life tends to do it for us. The proverbial rug gets pulled out from under our feet and we get laid off, divorced, have a health crisis, or other such things. We are in a cycle on the planet that is the result of inevitable growth. The crisis we face is simply a symptom of our having outgrown our old systems. We are shedding our old skin, so to speak. But just as we can face at times in our personal life, we are at a global crossroads. We can be deliberate and aware, steering the path that we take as we grow forward, or not. Our attention and intention influences how we walk the path of our growth and the quality of the future we create. The world is looking to you to be part of engineering the way forward. It starts first with you, healing the karma of your self-worth, the value you place on yourself, so that you can create with intentions and higher frequencies of energy that support the peaceful and sustainable evolution of the planet. Please remember, you are a vital, irreplaceable part of the evolution of the world. If you need help remembering the once-in-a-lifetime cosmic event that is you, please visit quantumalignmentsystem.com and get your free quantum human design chart. I'm Karen Curry Parker. Thank you for joining me for Quantum Revolution.
Thank you for joining us on Quantum Revolution with Karen Curry Parker. For more information on how to change your world and to hear more about our guest today, visit quantumrevolutionpodcast.com. Make sure you follow us on your favorite podcasting platform so you don't miss a single episode of Quantum Revolution. We'll see you next time for some more groundbreaking conversations with Karen and her guests. How will you impact your world today?